And we're back. Round 2.
Do you remember where we left off?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Do you?
No.
Really?
No.
Something else I beat you at.
Mm-hmm.
So we left off with I quit my job.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was which one.
Yes.
But a lot has happened since then. It was what, the 30th when we had that conversation? December 30th?
Mm-hmm.
And it is now January 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
So since then, I did a lot of work in the shop on your dad's car
Mm-hmm.
with him and your brother. You decided you tried to get a new vehicle by wrecking the minivan into the back of someone.
I said, you know what? I don't want that minivan anymore.
A little man got a cold.
Yeah.
So you might hear little snifflies in the back. He's sitting over here. What else? That's about it.
That's about it.
Yeah. So I quit my job in, do we have years? What year was it?
2017.
So I worked at so quick work history. Graduated high school 2007. Went to Universal Technical Institute in 2007 till 2008. Got my first job probably 2008 at a Master Auto Repair. Went from Master Auto Repair to Squires Towing, which I just called Squires, and they towed the van from South County down to Arnold. That was totally worth $115 because I would have had to drive all the way down to Festus, which is 40 minutes away, pick up my friend's trailer, and then drive all the way back to South County, which would have been like a 50-minute to an hour-long drive. Figure out a way to get the van up because his trailer doesn't have a winch on it, and then bring the van back here, unload it, and then go back down to Festus, drop the trailer off, and then come back here and then get started.
Yeah, that was totally worth it. I'm glad you did that.
Yeah. $115 for 5 hours, 6 hours, and a lot of effort. So sometimes you gotta press the easy button in life, and that's okay. But I worked at Squires Towing, which is Jake's brother's company. I actually worked there with him for a little bit. And then I went from there to a dealership, which was just terrible. You talking to me, buddy? And yeah, it was terrible for many reasons, but I quit / got fired from that job because the service manager brought me in and said, hey, we need to have a talk. And I said, okay. And I worked second shift, and second shift was not as busy as first shift. And they had GM specified training. And they said, you know what, you're not making your book hours and you're not doing your training. So what are you doing? And I said, well, is anybody else making their book hours? And he said, well, yeah. I said, okay. I said, how much training is everybody else doing? And because I knew I was doing my training. If I didn't have anything to work on, I was unfortunately sitting at a computer clicking buttons on a keyboard. And he's like, well, we're not comparing you to everybody else. And I said, well, you just did. And he's like, well, okay, if you're not doing your training and you're not making your hours, then what are you doing? I said, well, I'm not standing around with my thumb up my ass. And he said, this isn't working. I said, no, it isn't. I will leave today. So I left, and apparently somebody took my work jacket off of my tool cart sometime between me quitting, getting fired, and me going back to pick up my toolbox. So I got charged for a jacket, which is, yeah, it was just terrible. So that's all right.
Learning experience.
Yeah, so I quit that job. That was 2012. And then I my friend's mom, actually Dan's mom, I worked with Dan at the dealership, and I also have been friends with Dan since 3rd grade. We used to skateboard all the time together. And then we talked. He's like, yeah, my mom works in Peevely in HR at this foundry. So I went over and started working in the foundry. I was a no-bake floor molder, which is basically packing the molds with sand, and then you take the pattern out. You clamp the 2 halves of the mold together, and they fill that with metal. And then I went from there into the pattern shop, which was working on the patterns. The patterns were all wood. It was shaping, cutting, wood turning, kind of precise measuring, because you had to make sure that one side of the pattern matched the other side of the pattern, and they coped together properly. And then in that building, layout was connected to the pattern shop, and so they had a bunch of fancy measuring tools in there, and I went and finally got a job to go into there. So that is where I ended my life at Metal Tech. I worked in layout for a few years, year and a half, and just couldn't take it anymore. Didn't like people from upstairs coming down, breathing down my neck, particularly people who didn't really, I don't want to say mattered to me, but they had no impact. He's like, how long is this going to take? I'm like, okay, we've been doing this part for this long, and we know that it takes this long. This is the stage that we're at. This is the stage we're at with the other ones. This is how long it takes. Next day, hey, how long is this going to take? Well, we just went over this yesterday. It was the same thing, and he would breathe down our neck, and this guy looked like a character straight out of Beavis and Butthead, like nose, eyes, shape, everything. Super douche, but he ended up getting canned after I left. That seems to happen, because after I left the dealership, the service manager over there, he got canned as well. And now things run a lot better. And luckily, the guy I work with, who I'm still good friends with, good old Round Bone, he... Bring him right here. Sorry, we're multitasking with a baby who's a little sicky. So Ron Bone said, I think I've just been getting all your raises, because that was part of the issue. Was I felt like I'd stuck my neck out there for this. I went way beyond, way above and beyond, I feel like, expectations with this job, and I did not get what I thought I was deserving of. And then on top of that, dealing with all the upper management wanting to come down and dictate what I do, and I know my work ethic, and I know how hard I work, and I didn't need to put up with that, so I just up and quit. And at that time, we had money saved up from selling the house in Hillsboro, and that people would ask me, well, what are you going to do? Because, you know, word in the foundry traveled faster than an STD in high school. I don't know, that's a terrible joke, but yeah, I'm like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't have a plan. So at that point, I just started working out a lot, training for probably that race where I got DQ'd.
Mm-hmm. We also, the day you put in your 2 weeks was the day that James was in town, and we started talking to Wilma about the farm.
Mm.
Yep, the very day that you put your 2 weeks in.
I thought that happened afterwards.
Mm-mm. No, because you put your 2 weeks in, and you texted your family, and you told them, and then your dad was like, oh, well, James is in town, and he's going to come over for dinner.
Can you face the mic, Jennifer?
I
You're
can.
not very good
Sorry,
at that.
Everyone.
I think Jackson wants a mic too.
I think so.
So I put in my 2 weeks, text my family. Parents were still together at the time. And one of my dad's employees works from home, and he lived in Knoxville at the time. and on his, well, I guess his house, but all of the surrounding property was his aunt's, who is wealthy, had like 1,000 acres or whatever. Most of it being woods. It was in Knoxville, very mountainous, hilly, and they owned kind of the valley between the mountains. And there was a creek that ran through there, and she was looking for somebody to start farming there. And that is how we ended up in Tennessee. James talked to his aunt. We got a hold of her. She reached out to us. A couple conversations later, she was involved with Clayton Homes. She had a home built on one of her pieces of property out there, and within 6 months,
less than that, I think
we were moved out there.
Really? Yeah. So you quit. I think it was like, let's say like August or September that you quit, and we moved beginning of January, or maybe middle of January. We moved January of 2018. Our kid just loves to bounce.
He's a bouncy boy. He's going to be one heck of a jumper.
Then the two crops that the Wilma, who owned the farm, wanted us to pursue were growing hops commercially for beer and grass-fed cattle. So we took some crash courses in Farming 101.
So we went out there, built a half-acre hop yard, which hops grow, they grow vertically. And we put a grid of 48, I think, 24-foot long poles, probably buried them 3 or 4 feet into the ground. We laid it all out, dug the holes. My wife found logs. We used cedar logs. Drug them around with the tractor, drilled the holes with the tractor, with the auger on the back. And we built a hop yard. Put the poles in the ground. I built a platform we basically strapped it on to the forks. We got some good pictures and stuff I could probably find. But I did that, and that is a good trust exercise for a newlywed couple. If you can take your spouse up 12, 15 feet, it's probably 15 because the platform was every bit of 5 feet.
Yeah.
And the bottom of the forks would go up 10. So, yeah, 15 feet on a homemade platform strapped to a tractor. And not kill them, because it would have been easy to do. Okay. That's pretty good. And then, so anyway, on the tops of all the poles, you connect those with wire, and then you tension that, and then you attach coir from the don't grab the mic, buddy. You attach string from the top wire, and then it dangles down. They come in pre-cut lengths of 19 or 23 feet, something like that.
Yeah.
And then you use this W clip. Oh, are you pooping?
Podcasting with children. Yay. Yeah, we used what Jake just called it coir, which is basically like twine made out of coconut husk. And it's very abrasive and fairly coarse, and it's a very good medium for the hops to climb up.
So hops are a bind. So anyway, you take 2 strings, and then you bring them down into one, basically where you plant the rhizome, which is basically a chunk of root, and it will grow. Your hops will grow from that. So we basically went around, buried rhizomes in the ground every 3 feet or so. Mm-hmm. And then for every hill that we had of rhizomes, we would take 2 pieces of coir and then string them into that hill. So it basically made a V at every hill. And we had 450 hills, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's what a hop yard is, and then they just start growing up and up and up, and they spiral around the coir and they follow the sun, so they go a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you harvest, you we cut all the bottoms first, probably about 3 feet up.
Yeah, you want to leave about 3 feet at the bottom. All the carbohydrates from the remaining plant go back down into the rhizomes for winter and help keep it alive during the winter.
So we just took a cordless hedge trimmer and just went through, whacked them all, and then got in the tractor, cut all the tops the same way, and then loaded them into the bed of the truck, which we had a tarp, and then drove down to the local brewery, which you worked at,
Mm-hmm.
Who we agreed to sell all of our hops to so they could make some beer with it.
It was pretty cool. We had like a whole event. So the brewery advertised a hop picking party. And so basically free labor. We had some free beer for people who were picking hops. And, the whole like community kind of helped pick the hops, which was pretty cool because it would have taken us a hell of a lot longer by ourselves.
And they have hop harvesters, but it's a big $20,000 machine that is not suitable for a small operation like we had. So after that took up probably more than half of the time to do that and go through all that. And then we moved to the other property about a mile down the road and started putting up fence. Cleared it all out. We found a guy who did forestry mulching, and I think we kind of helped him get his business started.
Yeah, we were doing this for the beef cattle, if that was not clear.
And we had him clear out probably 11 acres or so of woods, get rid of all the underbrush and some of the small trees. And then we figured out a path. Well, I figured out a path of where I wanted the fence because part of the field floods, and we had been dealing with the neighbor's fence flooding and being flooded into our property, and you get the barbed wire or whatever stuck in the brush hog. It's not good, so we were always very careful. And luckily, never got any barbed wire hung up back there, but we definitely got some electric fence stuck in it, which we got out. I got out. After that, we got pregnant.
Both of us at the same time.
We were trying to.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there goes that.
Yeah, we were trying, and I found out the beginning of September. I think it was Labor Day weekend. And Jake was actually the one who was like, I think you might be pregnant. You should take a test, because I ate a lot on Labor Day. And then it was positive, and we kept it to ourselves a little bit for a few weeks. And then I was about 11 weeks pregnant. We went home to St. Louis to see our family.
It was a surprise for my dad's 60th birthday.
Yeah. So we went home, and since we were home, we told everybody. And then we had a doctor's appointment the next week, just a regular 12-week checkup. And during our ultrasound, there wasn't a heartbeat. So I had a miscarriage, but just didn't know it at that time. So then we dealt with that, but we had pretty much already decided before we knew about the miscarriage that we wanted to move home, primarily for me.
I loved the job. Great job. The only things that I wish I could have changed were, I wish I would have been able to own a piece of the property myself, and I wish we got paid just a wee bit more. I guess it would have been it would have been better for me if it could have been a work to own situation. If you work here for this long, then this chunk of land and this house will also become yours. Because then we would have been able to get something out of it. We would be a little more vested.
Yeah. For me, it was really difficult. One, because the farm lifestyle, while I loved tons of things about it, I worked with Jake day in and day out and didn't see anybody else. And I thrive on words of affirmation. And for all of my husband's strengths, giving positive
Empathy is not anywhere in my strong suit.
So that was really tough for me. So I actually started working at the brewery where we sold our hops, just for more social interaction. I'm a people person, and that was actually really awesome. It was perfect. And we really enjoyed the balance of that, but I also missed my family. I'm super close with my mom and my brother and sister-in-law, and our first nephew had been born in August of that year, and I was pretty bummed to not be around him as well. So when we got pregnant, we had pretty much decided that we were going to move home. And then we miscarried after that, obviously. But we still decided that moving home was best for us because we still wanted to have a baby. And once we had that baby, I didn't want to be by myself in Knoxville without any family or friends.
So then we loaded everything up and moved back. Luckily, we didn't have the Jeep to bring back because it never made it down there. We left St. Louis early one morning with, I had the 26-foot box truck. I had the Jeep on a trailer behind it, and we made it not even 30 minutes, and I look in the mirror, and there's just smoke billowing out of the trailer, as if, Don Schumacher was doing a burnout or something. I don't know. There was a lot of smoke coming out, and what had happened was the wheel bearing on one of the trailer tires went bad. The wheel turned sideways and was just dragging along the highway at 63 miles an hour. And putting molten rubber on top of the trailer deck, I finally pull over, go back there, and then there's a little incipient fire on the trailer, so I quickly pulled the Jeep off, and luckily the Jeep was running and driving just fine back then, and just decided, you know what, screw it, I'm going to leave their junk trailer here on the side of the, I guess it was the on-ramp, they can deal with it, and then I'll drive the Jeep back, and it can sit, I guess it sat at my parents' house for a while until we moved it.
Yeah.
I don't remember where we moved it to, but...
The property, I think.
Oh, yeah. I forgot we had that then. So, yeah, that was a good start to the move, definitely.
Yeah, very stressful.
And then on the way back, things went a little bit better. I think you were in the minivan. I was in the moving truck. Don flew out, and...
He drove your car.
He drove my shit box back. Thank goodness we had your brother for that. That was nice. And at that time, I think he missed your grandpa's funeral for that.
Did he? Andy.
What is she doing?
Itching her ear.
All right. I don't even know where we were. So we moved back here.
Yeah, went better.
And then we lived with your mom this time, who had two old-ass dogs who at this current moment are not with us anymore.
No.
Plus our dogs.
Yeah. I know.
And then we ended up getting pregnant again, finally.
Mm-hmm. We found out at the end of September, so it took a year to get pregnant again.
And by then I had already had 2 or 3 jobs. Of course, I'm sure everybody's surprised. I started working. Jen's dad found me a job where he worked to be a tank welder, and I couldn't stand... Oh. I couldn't stand the work day there. It was a 10-hour day, which is okay if you're working 10 hours a day, but when you only work 5 out of the 10 and you sit on your butt and chit-chat All right, we're gonna have to intermission here.
Yep. Sorry, everyone. Hey, Jeter. What's your deal? Mommy is sweating.